Welcome to Book Huddle. I am so excited to have another author on today. Laura Berry wrote the Antyfas series. Did I say it right, Laura? Antyfas?
Yeah, your pronunciation is probably more accurate. I get really melodramatic and call it Antyfas, but I think Antyfas is
Antyfas.
actually how it should be pronounced.
Well, we will say Antyfas if that's how the author pronounces it. So, and I reviewed, and I'll put in the description where I reviewed the second book in the series, The Nasties of Nastgant. Now I'm really paranoid that I'm pronouncing things wrong. The Nasties of Nastgant Swamp, and she's working on a third one right now. So tell us about the world of Antyfas, because just our audience knows nothing about it. So tell us all about Antyfas.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.
And thank you for reviewing my book. I really appreciate hearing what other people think of it. It's always so much fun to see how your creations are melded into someone else's imagination. I love it. So with Antyfas, I really like over the top, ridiculous, silly fantasy stories. Like Xena and Terry Pratchett were actually huge influences for how I wanted this series to feel, where it is a little dangerous, a little silly and smart, and also just bizarre. What I loved about Xena's world composition was very clearly there were things taken from our world, from real life. And then just madness was thrown in with whatever the costume designers wanted to do. There would be things inspired by Spartans, but also for some reason the Spartans also have tassels and glitter and whatever they wanted. So I was trying to come up with my own mad amalgamation of things people could connect to and put a little bit of a funky twist on it, which is something I thought Terry Pratchett and the creators of Xena did really well. And that's what I'm trying to do with this. We'll see how well it goes. So far, I've had kids who have been pleased with it. So cross your fingers that continues.
So let's talk about the setting of this world. So it's otherworldly, or is it Earth and we don't realize that these kind of things exist on Earth?
I guess technically it is a high fantasy. Antyfas is its own world. While there might be some things that are very similar or even are inspired by our world, or even like I said, heavy influence from Xena. So there are things that are just straight up stolen from our world, but Antyfas is in its own plane of existence.
But we need something to connect to and some familiarity. So that's great that there's some things familiar to Earth. So, and then it all revolves around this family, and the family's at a farm, right? And, but there's also the first book, is it the brother when he's out at school?
Yeah, so the first book in the series is called Death at Dusbar College. And the series features this big family of cousins and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. So each story is a standalone, and it doesn't have to be read in order, but each one follows one of the kids on their very own adventure. So the kickoff to the series is Death at Dusbar College, and Cristiano is the hero of that story. He goes to visit his aunt at a magical college, and he has to
So
solve a mystery.
How old is he? I got the feel that he was a young teen. Is that right?
He's 11. Yeah.
Okay. So because he features,
story.
I've only read Nasties of Nastgant Swamp, but he does feature just a little bit in the story. He comes in, and is the first book where he meets his demon frog?
Yeah. Yes.
The
first book is where he meets his familiar. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So in the first book, he is at school, and the aunt plays a major part, right? And she's got magic, and he's learning to have magic. Is that correct?
Yeah. So in the world of Antyfas, magic is a very egalitarian resource. If you work on it and practice, and you can accomplish magical feats. So there is a college where his aunt is a professor there, and that's a birthday treat for Cristiano, since he's a very intelligent, loves to read little kid. She invites him to come on out and to meet some of the other magicians there. And while she's there, they're also getting ready for the Grand Magician's birthday party. Unfortunately, the Grand Magician is found deceased one day, and he leaves behind a riddle. And whoever gets to solve the riddle gets an incredible prize. And that is the crux of the Death at Dusbar College series,
Okay.
story, excuse me. So then when we pick up in the Nasties and Nastgant Swamp, he's actually coming home from that adventure.
Okay.
And that's why the family's getting ready to have a big birthday party for Cristiano, because it was also his birthday.
Right. Excellent. And so the Nasties and Nastgant Swamp, the main character is not this 11-year-old, this Cristiano that we were talking about. It's actually, was he 5? Is that how old he is?
Yeah. Yeah. So the focus of the, I'm so sorry, you go.
Oh, no, go ahead. So I was just going to say, so my initial thought when I was reading it was like, normally you want to write, because the audience is actually, the middle grade around ages 8 through 13, 14, right? Is what your intended audience of the book is. So initially I was like, it's interesting that a 5-year-old's a character, but I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, because it's fun to experience and remember what you were like. And the language is still very much for that older child audience, for these middle grade readers. And so let's talk, oh gosh, I forgot his name. What is the 5-year-old's name? It's been months since I read it.
Valentino.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about Valentino without giving spoilers about the Nasties. Let's talk a little bit about setting up his adventure in this story and how he relates to Cristiano.
Yeah. So he is the youngest in that family, and like any 5-year-old, he has some struggles with some of the more practical tasks that his older siblings can do. So he gets a little annoyed when he tries to do a task at home and it kind of backfires on him. And then he's invited off to this magical place where he can go to a party all on his own. And then there are some misadventures along the way. But yes, I'm really glad that you mentioned the language, because I am trying to write up to the readers. I definitely want it to be something that is fun for the whole family, because if you have bedtime, you might have 2 siblings sharing your room. Maybe one of them is 8 and the other one's 5 or something. People are still having bedtime stories together. So I want it to be something that's fun for adults to read, something that would still be entertaining for an older sibling to hear, and something that would be fun for a younger sibling too, even if it's basically, I'm trying to make it work for everyone. So you either have a kid who is learning how to read or is practicing their reading skills, and maybe they're reading to their younger sibling. So whoever's reading the book will have fun language to work with and silly images that will make them laugh. And whoever is being read to is still being entertained, because there's still enough ridiculousness that can keep a younger child's attention. There's a lot going on. I'm trying, it's a bit of a mad science project with these books, but it's been fun to try and work out that puzzle.
Well, that's excellent. And I love that you talk about it being a family thing, because we like to do read alouds. We do One School, One Book with my kids' elementary school, and they assign the same book to kindergarten through 5th grade. And then, it's a very involved thing that the parents read it aloud is the goal, that it's a family thing that you're reading it aloud, whether you have a kindergartner or a 5th grader or multiple children. And then there's activities and things like that. And I could see this being something really great, as something that different grades could do, or like you were saying, the family could really enjoy this series. And it's great because you don't have to read the series, this one. You could, take a break, because right now we're reading a Christmas book, or right now we've got this that we're doing. And so then when we come back, we don't feel like, oh, what on earth happened in that other one? You just want to be familiar with it maybe. And it doesn't matter if you're not. I like that it's a standalone, but they are in the same world and related. So that's a really neat thing that you did there.
I think I also did that because I remember being a kid, and it was always so frustrating to find book 3 of a series that I was interested in, or book 2. But book 1 was always really hard to get your hands on, because everyone else wanted to read book 1. So I think there was something else I was trying to do. And all of these books are inspired by children I know and love. So each one, I did want it to be unique, like each kid. And at the same time, even though I'm trying to sort of get the point across that yes, you are unique in your own way, but you're not an island. So the books do connect to each
That
other
is
and they feed into each
wonderful.
other, and there's different. It is. It's fun. It's really fun writing for kids I know, and I mean, I've had the privilege to do work with kids. Throughout my professional career, I got to teach like drama classes for a range of students, and it's been a great learning experience. Remembering how, like, the syntax of how kids talk, and also knowing that if you are writing a book for a particular child, you better get it right because otherwise you're going to make somebody really upset. So it does, as a writer, it's great to practice your listening skills just as you're trying to teach young
Yes.
readers to focus and to listen and actually try and bring your characters to life in an authentic way, which is, it's a fun challenge. And like I say, I kind of approach these books like a puzzle. And the way I set them up is I usually try and think of how do I want it to end. And
Yeah.
that makes the whole thing a lot easier if you know where you're going.
Yes, that's excellent. That is excellent. So I have to ask, as I was reading, the characters, I've heard of trolls and gnomes and things before. Was it a griffin? Is that what the name of the
Yeah,
chicken cat
Griffin.
was? All right. So is
Yeah.
that a creature of your own creating, or is that something you've read in fantasy somewhere?
That's actually, I think the Griffin's my own. I think the Griffin
All
is
right.
actually my own creation.
So
If
it's
someone
part
out there
chicken
can
and
prove me
part
wrong,
cat, right? Part cat.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I was
What
like,
a
you know
fun
what? I don't think
animal.
I've seen the cricket. I really enjoyed that, and I had a great time working with Lee Thompson for the illustrations. It's so much fun, and he just got the face great, like perfectly. I was like, I want something that looks like mildly irritated. He's like, oh, here you
Because
go.
that is totally a cat, right?
Yeah, like he got it. I love working with Lee Thompson on this, and it's been great. He and I will do Zoom meetings, and you'll just watch him. Like I was saying earlier, it's great to see people take your work and meld it into something else in their
Yes.
head. And watching him physically do that was incredible. I love working with Lee.
Oh, that is so fun. So great to have a good relationship with your illustrator. Excellent. So I would love to hear now, what is your favorite children's book that you have from either when you were growing up, or that you just, I don't know, you probably read children's literature still since you write it. So what can you share with us that you can recommend?
There are a ton that I really enjoyed for a mix of reasons, either for the illustrations or for the stories. I think if I had to say one for illustrations alone, oh my gosh, the Mitten, the picture with the Mitten, I
Yes.
loved that. You get sucked into those pages. But
The picture
I was
book where
thinking
he
about this.
loses the
But he
red
loses
mitten
his
in the
mitten
snow and the animals all go inside
yeah,
it.
crawl into it, and
Yes.
I loved that. And there was something they're beautiful. They're beautiful pictures that you as a kid just get sucked into. I can just look
Yes.
at those for hours. And I think so. I was thinking about this because you had asked me to think about it, and there were a couple that came to mind. Like I love the Narnia series, but
Yes.
honestly, probably the first series that actually showed me some interesting literary constructs that I appreciate to this day. Magic Treehouse. Magic
Oh,
Treehouse
great.
series has historical fiction, and also it was the first time where I saw a book take one of the OGs of villainous, in literature, Morgan Le Fay, and make her benevolent. And I hadn't even thought about that until last night. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, that was actually a really high literature move for her to do in that series for younger
That is
kids, and be
awesome.
like, hey, by the way, let's start smashing the patriarchy. I mean, it was also just like an interesting, I really appreciate that now as an adult, thinking to myself, oh, that influence has been there from the beginning, and I love that she did it. I think that one of the biggest tenets for writers needs to be show don't tell. unless obviously you're very good at telling. I think actions speak louder than words. Like that's the version that translates into the writing world, even though it's
Right.
all about words. And she
Yeah.
did such a good job of show, don't tell with that. And I thought it was phenomenal. You know, it was just wild because it's one of the things that the seeds are planted, and then years later you're like, oh my gosh. And yeah, so
I'm having an oh my gosh moment.
Yeah.
I didn't like, I know I'm familiar a little bit with some Merlin stories, but I didn't know. I've heard the name Morgan Le Fay, but I didn't. So she's the villain in these stories.
Oh
That's
yeah,
not Magic
Morgan Le
Treehouse.
Fay. Oh yeah, and when I was a kid, I was huge into myths and legends. I loved all of the Round Table stories. Morgan Le Fay is one of the first, probably when you're, at least when you're in my generation, she's probably one of the first like villains you run into. Morgan Le Fay is who she like brings down King Arthur. She is like this huge. She's King Arthur's like half sister.
Oh, okay.
And basically she's like his foil. Like she is big bad Morgan Le Fay. And then I remember probably when I was in like middle school, people were starting to write books about Morgan Le Fay. There was a huge trend of like the misunderstood villainesses.
Okay.
I butchered that word, but yeah, I when I was in like when I was 7, that didn't really exist then.
Yeah,
and
right. That wasn't a part of your world.
That wasn't a part of my world. It was just, you know, I had my Arthurian legends, which I loved, and then Magic Treehouse came out, and or at least like I was introduced to Magic Treehouse,
Right,
and yeah,
right.
that concept of switching a character completely that's huge, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, Magic Treehouse.
I'm so excited to go tell my kids because you know I read them with he's now 13 and when he was my 9-year-old, and now we're reading through my first grader now. You know, we read Magic Treehouse, and he, you know, Morgan is just so loving, and she's so good about the direction, and she sends children on perilous events. So as a parent, I'm like, well, that's not that. Maybe that's the villain in her because she is sending these children on these perilous adventures. But yeah, like
spicy. She's like a little crazy ant in the tree somewhere. It's like, they'll be fine.
There you go. She is the crazy ant in the tree, like the ant in your Antyfas story, that the magic ant. There we go. I like this. She's the crazy ant in the tree because she's like, don't worry, it'll all be fine. You're gonna go on these crazy.
Like, I got you. It's cool. Like, I got you. You just don't see the training wheels, but like, I'll be there.
Yeah, right. I love that. And I'm so excited to go tell my boys now that I'll be like, did you know? Like, we've got to go read some of this other stuff because she's actually the villain. What are you going to think about this? That is.
Yeah, yeah, they'll be shocked if they haven't known Morgan Le Fay as like the legend version of Morgan Le Fay. It's gonna be crazy for them.
Oh, that is awesome. I'm stoked because it's so great to talk to kids too about, you know, different points of view and these different things and seeing something from different. And that's something your book does too, because as the main character, and then kind of like Wings of Fire, where, you know, each book is a different dragon's mind, and then they see the character different. And so it was interesting to do that. It's similar in your books where, you know, you've got Cristiano who has experienced everything, but then he's a supporting character in the Nasties book. And so how great to really talk to children about this, that you're seeing things and thinking things differently than what somebody else is. And that's a great thing.
That is also fun to do too, and also tough when you have support. I mean, characterization is hard, and again, like that's the fun challenge of these books is to be like, okay, how do I write this character as a supporting player through the eyes of someone else? And thankfully, normally it is that you do your basic building blocks of just this is how they talk, this is what they do. But then it's how do they interact with this other character that I haven't introduced before? And that's where things can get fuzzy, and that's where you have like human chemistry, and you kind of run with it, but obviously you have to use your prior like context clues to build something that is actually believable, but you can get a little crazy with it.
That's excellent. Oh, I just love it. And I feel like I could just talk to you all day, but we better wrap up. And maybe we could have you back though, because you've got a third book in the works, right? About this Antyfas world. And can you tell us who the main character of that one will be?
Yeah. Thankfully, I actually was working on that draft prior to this meeting. We're halfway through.
Yay.
The heroine. I know.
Oh, yay,
I
it's the
was saying yay too.
heroine.
I was like, oh, good. Yeah. So it's not the same immediate family. It's actually a cousin of the
Okay.
boys. Her name is Emily, and her book is called Farad's Forewarning. And it features a very perilous prophecy, and some very interesting new characters are coming our way.
Excellent. Will we see a little cameo of Valentino and Cristiano at all?
I actually, yes, you do. I forgot. Yes, Cristiano does
Okay.
make an appearance.
Okay, Cristiano will make an appearance. Well, that's so fun because it's so fun to, have some connection where you're like, ooh, I know who that is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they are. There's definitely a thread. There's a thread. They play a smaller supporting role in this next one, but they are definitely still around.
Little present. All right, excellent.
Yeah.
So down below, make sure to check out. I will have how you can find Laura, where you can order her books, and any websites or anything that you want to share with us. We'll put this down in the link below so that everybody knows where to find you. And thank you so much for being on and our guest today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.